Good morning. I'm so glad I had a chance to meet with you regarding Trace's progress this semester.
Not a problem. His mother and I wish he was doing better, but even with all of this extra help through pullouts at school, he's still failing.
Actually, even within the last couple of months, Trace has been making huge leaps toward getting back on track with his academics. With the right amount of moral support from both his peers and myself, he's been able to keep up with his classmates and accomplish more than I've ever seen him do. He's a smart young man with a lot of creativity that drives his motivation. Speaking of creative, Trace has made some of the most intricate artwork that I've ever seen, and his passion that is about it makes me love it even more.
I'm glad you see those qualities in him. His art is up all around our house. Of course, I see it, but it's nice to know that his teacher is looking at him more than just a problem child. And what a relief he's being successful in class. What do you think changed his work ethic?
I actually had a conversation with Trace about his future and where he wants to be in 5, 10, or even 30 years. His ambitious spirit made a list of potential careers that ranged from professional football player to marine biologist. The one that he was most excited about was a lawyer because he wants to throw those bad guys in jail. When he said this, I was surprised, yet excited because I knew I could use this to push and make him realize. I explained that yes, a lawyer can make millions, but it doesn't happen overnight, and that it is years of schooling to learn the fundamentals. I also let him know that people don't just make it into law school, and that they have to study hard and put forth 110% of their effort in order to even be qualified. I was hoping that I had gotten through to him and opened his eyes to the importance of these foundational years.
I'm glad he has finally seen the light.
As am I. But I have to be honest, I was definitely worried, as you know from our emails, that the beginning of the year was hard on Trace's grades, and he made me worry that he had fallen too far behind in order to catch him up before he moves on to middle school next year. I did some tests with Trace to locate exactly where he was within his phonics and fluency and comprehension levels. It was hard to determine the best approach for him and where to start. I would love to share what I had found.
Absolutely. I was nervous to hear about how bad it was, too.
It isn't terrible, but we definitely have our work cut out for us. So the first test that I gave him was a spelling test that was created by a textbook called Words Their Way. This is a special test because it doesn't just identify the words that he can and can't spell, but it also outlines where he becomes weak within his phonics patterns and sounds. The words start out quite basic and then become more challenging by using more complex and higher level phonics knowledge. So, for example, the beginning of the test, Trace was easily identifying consonant sounds as well as short and long vowel sounds. Between early and middle word patterns is where Trace began not picking up all the sounds in the words. One word in particular was the word float. So he was able to hear the blend sound of full, but not the vowel sound of OA. He spelled 12 out of the 25 words correctly and ended the assessment with a total score of 44 out of 87. So what made me a little anxious was that the identifying sounds and word patterns is a third grade skill. But don't let the third grade level scare you. He can easily strengthen his awareness by reading more and often and different types of text. He cannot be afraid of challenging himself within his reading because I think that factor is contributing the most. He only rents books from the library that he has previously read because he sees reading as more of a chore than a pastime. Trace has enough background knowledge, and I see it as the easiest fix to bring up his grade.
I had no idea it was that bad.
Like I said, it's going to be an easy fix as long as we start exposing him now. Another area that I was initially concerned about was his comprehension and fluency while reading. These two go hand in hand because if you can understand and think in an abstract mindset while you read, you will be able to gain a stronger fluency. The Jennings Informal Reading Assessment is a great way to see both of these pan out. The way this works is that a child is first asked to read a set of words. When you come across the list that gives them the right amount of difficulty, yet the minimal frustration, you have the student read the corresponding short story. In the copy that I have in front of me, I make notes on any errors of pronunciation and keep track of how many words that he reads in 1 minute. Then there is a list of questions that correspond with the text. If the student earns points when answering the question correctly. So when Trace started off the assessment, he read the words in level 3. He read about 80% of them correctly. However, I saw a healthy amount of difficulty with the remaining 20%, so I proceeded with the level 3 short story. Before we began, I checked to make sure that he had had some background knowledge with these words. He said that he had recognized them and seen them before, so we began the test. Once the assessment began, Trace was able to read 78 words in the first minute with only 4 mistakes, making his score 74 correct words in a minute. His mistakes were common mistakes, such as adding her to the sentence or saying walk instead of talk. As Trace continued to read the remainder of the text, he made only one more mistake when he switched the word this for his. It took him about 2 minutes and 4 seconds to read the entire text. Directly after, I asked him 8 questions referencing details in the story. Out of the 8 questions, he answered 6 correctly, one with an unnoted answer, which he wanted to skip because he did not know.
What do these scores mean?
Trace kept consistent with the level 3 skill. I think the best approach for Trace is to tackle comprehension and then fluency. In order to help him build a stronger sense of comprehension, I would love to incorporate almost like a book club where groups of students can read similar passages and discuss personal connections, opinions, or even predictions. This would be in a casual setting with peers that he was comfortable with, and once I see some progression, I would like to start utilizing a program that's similar to the Dibbles to look into his fluency. The program would be focused on Trace setting goals and having him track his own progress in a fun way. So he would be challenged and he would earn points for how many words that he reads in a selected amount of time, and then those points could be used as a reward.
Yes, he's so competitive. He would respond to that well.
I thought so too. The last assessment I gave Trace was to identify his level of vocabulary. The Davis and Bruce word meaning test gives students a list of 5 words that they have to define. We started with the level 3 set because of where Trace was before, and he passed with flying colors. We moved up to the 4th level, but Trace missed more than the allotted amount. So once again, his final score sits at about a level 3. This is actually great news. Trace with being able to jump up to do the level 4 words means that he's in between levels. My approach for his vocabulary is to continue the higher reading level books exposure. I think having a loved one at home, start as the main reader and then slowly move toward tag teaming would help him ease into the higher level vocabulary. If you guys came across a word that he was unfamiliar with, you could stop and take a minute to discuss it. The best way is to relate it to his life and then try to make a connection.
Awesome ideas, and I really see us incorporating this into our nightly routines.
Cool. And I made a booklet of some higher level words that I think would help spark Trace's interest. If you guys need any extra resources or ideas to help Trace continue on his academic journey, please feel free to let me know. I have an abundance of resources, and I would be more than willing to share them with you.
Will do. I enjoyed talking with you. Trace loves being in your class, and I can see why.
You've raised quite an amazing son. You should be proud.